Hi everyone, welcome back to Gdaynamaste. If you're a return subscriber, if you're new here, welcome to Gdaynamaste. For those who don't know, I'm an Australian living in India for the past 3.5 years. So I have just come back 3.5 weeks ago, almost 1 month ago, to India after spending 5 weeks in Australia. So this video is going to be about my reverse culture shock moment. So the things that I experienced in Australia that made me kind of think, oh, I'm not in India anymore. A lot of funny ones, a little bit of an emotional one as well, but overall I think they're like little quirky things that make India India. So let's go. Also, for the fun of the video, I'm wearing my Vegemite shirt. So I did get this in Australia. Love our Vegemite. I wore it traveling back to India. I think it's my new favorite shirt. So I'm just going to do this in order as things happened. Very first one, point number one of reverse culture shock number one, was actually just speaking Hindi out of default. I went to do it so much. For example, just saying Hanji to everything, which means yes, or X second, which means 1 second. Did that one a lot. One thing that I died a little bit inside about was actually saying side instead of excuse me, but it was just to my sister, so it was fine. But like in India, we say side instead of excuse me. So I think this is more of a North Indian thing though, actually. But yeah, so speaking Hindi out of default, reverse culture shock number one. Number two was actually looking for veg options. So if you don't know, I'm a pescatarian. Mostly I eat veg though, especially here in India. I did eat a lot of seafood in Australia, but here in India, I mostly eat vegetarian. When I was transiting through Singapore, I have a video about that here. They have this street food section at the top of the food court, and basically it was all meat. I don't eat eggs anymore either. So yeah, they either had meat or the veg options had egg. And in India, the menus are separated. There's always a veg menu and a non-veg menu. The veg menu has a little green dot, the non-veg menu has a little red dot. So I was walking around the food court looking for this green dot to show that it's a veg option. I found a Burger King at the very end of the food court and I went there. And yeah, again, I was like, where is the green dot? There was no green dot, but they did have a vegetarian plant-based burger option, which I got. So that was, yeah, that sort of made me think, okay, I'm definitely like in between two worlds here. Not quite in my home yet. I had just left my other home, and being in Singapore, I experienced a lot of like kind of uncomfortable moments actually, which made me realize like, oh yes, I'm in a different place. Oh, also about that, McDonald's in Australia doesn't have any vegetarian burgers. I don't know if that's changed. I don't remember if they ever used to have like a McVeg or some kind of veg option. They do have a fillet of fish, which doesn't appeal to me. So yeah, McDonald's doesn't have vegetarian burgers in Australia, which is so weird because in India, they have like a whole vegetarian menu, and even the McDonald's at Amritsar near the Golden Temple, all vegetarian. The whole menu is just vegetarian because it's so close to like a holy place. So yeah, they don't even have like chicken or mutton at that McDonald's. It's pure vegetarian. So number three is lining up. In India, we tend to not line up properly. We kind of just gather in one spot. Doesn't matter whether it's lining up to pay for something, whether it's driving in a line, whether it is waiting to go to the washroom or toilet. Yeah. We just don't stay in a straight line. So I went into 7-Eleven at Singapore airport and I was just like standing close to the register with my things ready to pay, and I looked and there was this whole line of people just looking at me thinking that I was going to cut in front. I was so embarrassed. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't know there was a line. So then I went to the back of the line. But yeah, that was another moment for me. I nearly cried then because I'd been at the airport for like 6 hours. And I was feeling really overwhelmed, and I was like, oh my God, like I'm feeling so uncomfortable here because I'm completely out of my comfort zone. Even though I'm going back to my home country, I was still very much in my India bubble. Okay, the next one is drinking from the tap. So in India, we don't drink from the tap. We have a water filter, or people boil water boil tap water, depending on where you are. Like we've had to boil tap water here before, like if our water filter is broken and it's been fine. Maybe in some parts of India you still can't even do that. But yeah, when I got picked up from the airport by my dad, we went back to my brother's house and I went to fill out my water bottle, and I kind of stopped in the kitchen and like looked around for a second, and I was like, I guess I'm just going to be drinking straight from the tap. And just being able to turn on, like drink from the tap that we wash the dishes from, it was so weird for me. It was so weird. I got used to it in the end, but then I also ended up getting sick one time. I got a bacteria infection towards the end of my stay in Brisbane. Anyway, yeah, so drinking from the tap was so strange, and it's something that took me the whole time in Australia to really get used to. It just felt so weird just going straight to the tap to fill up the water and then drink from it. Here in India, and I guess this is like maybe people do it in other countries too. I know that my grandma used to do it in her place, but just getting into the habit of turning off all the power points when you're finished using them. So when we're finished with the microwave, we turn the power point off. When I'm finished with my coffee machine, I'll turn the power point off. And I still had that same habit, which is not a bad habit to have. But when I'm staying in someone else's home, I obviously want to respect the way they do things. And if they keep their power points on, I didn't want to be going around turning everything off. So I kept kind of being like, oh, do I turn it on? Do I turn it off? So that was a little bit of another quirky reverse culture shock that I had, was just out of habit. It was these kind of things that made me realize like I was doing things out of habit. I never did that before. When I lived in Australia, I never turned PowerPoints off. But yeah, obviously that's something I do here now a lot, and it's now a habit. And going back to Australia, it was very much a habit for me to go and try and turn everything off. Next one on the list was crossing at traffic lights. You don't just cross the road whenever you feel like it. You just don't walk in front of cars and stick your hand out and like tell the car to wait. You have to cross at a pedestrian crossing, and you can actually get a fine or a challan if you jaywalk. Basically, if you walk somewhere where there's a pedestrian crossing and you don't use that crossing, you can get a fine. So I was really conscious about that because I'm just so used to just crossing a road whenever I feel like it here. So I have a few day in my life videos in my Australia playlist where I do show what it's like crossing the road. You actually have to push a button and then you have to wait. You have to wait until the little man turns green, and then he gives you a countdown to cross the road. So if you haven't watched any of those, I'll put a couple of the videos up top, or at least one that I know that it's in there. That was really weird for me as well, to have to get used to crossing the road at traffic lights, pushing the button and not just walking in front of traffic and telling them to stop. The next one's a little bit different because I wouldn't say it's cultural, but it's just different. Maybe it is a culture difference, because obviously like the way people dress in India is very different to the way people dress in the West. And I have been living in India for over 3.5 years now. The kinds of clothes I wear to the gym, I wear, like, if you've seen a couple of my workout videos, I wear tights and like a tank top. Sometimes I wear shorts, but they're to my knee. I never wear like booty shorts or like just crops. Some people do here, and that's completely fine, but it's not something I've ever been comfortable doing here in India myself. And so I found that the kind of gym clothes I wore in Australia, I felt like I was wearing too many clothes, because all the girls around me were wearing like mini shorts and crop tops. Again, completely okay, no judgment, but it just felt like really weird. It made me, I felt like I was out of place, because like the kind of clothes I wear to the gym here in India, girls don't really wear those kind of clothes. They might wear more loose fitting clothes or t-shirts. But yeah, the clothes I wear to the gym here, when I was wearing them in Australia, I felt like I was wearing too many clothes, and I felt like I was out of place in both countries based on that. So that was a little bit strange, because all of these things I was experiencing in the first few days or the first week, like everything I've already talked about, and then this, I actually felt like a bit like I was starting to feel really lost and out of place. It was so strange. Another huge reverse culture shock was the cost of things. Australia is already more expensive than India, but over the last 3.5 years, cost of living has gone up, prices have gone up because of so many factors. Like, I was shook at the cost of things there. Going out for breakfast maybe used to cost me like, I don't know, $10 for like for breakfast and coffee. This time it's like double. But a few things that like my Indian subscribers or watchers or followers might kind of be shocked about is the cost of threading. Eyebrow threading, upper lip, facial threading, that sort of thing. So here in India, I get my upper lip and my eyebrows threaded for 50 rupees, which is like less than $1 Australian. In Australia, at the eyebrow bar or the threading bar, standard price is 25 Australian dollars, which is like 1,400 rupees. So yeah, I didn't get any threading done. I didn't get any beauty treatments done in Australia, purely because like I just couldn't justify it. I couldn't bring myself to pay that kind of money, which is normal. I used to. But now that I'm living in India, I'm earning much less than when I was living in Australia. I knew that I could get it much cheaper here, so I literally waited till I got back to like get all of these things done. The next thing, cherries. I can't really remember the cost of cherries in India, but I know that it's much cheaper to Australia. Cherries were always really expensive in Australia anyway, but I was in the fruit shop with my mum and there were cherries on special for $52.99 a kilo. That works out to be around 2,900 rupees a kilo. I remember telling my in-laws this, they were really shocked. Another one was lychees, or in Hindi it's known as litchi. They were also on special for $49.99 a kilo Australian, which works out to be 2,800 rupees a kilo. I know, crazy. So yeah, just general cost of everything has gone up, the general cost of a lot of things. Yeah, that was a huge reverse culture shock for me. I didn't really do much shopping or anything there. Like I bought a few things, but like I got back and I had so many people ask if I went shopping. I didn't, because it's so expensive there. Even makeup, like your standard like Maybelline, L'Oreal foundation that would be considered like drugstore or pharmacy makeup in the States or Canada, like the foundation I use, Maybelline Fit Me or Superstay, here it's like 500 rupees, like around $10 Australian. Canada and America, I think it's like $8 or something in the pharmacies. And in Australia, it's like $28, which is close to like 1,500 rupees. So like I literally didn't buy much for that reason. I just bought like souvenirs and like some food and things. But clothes, makeup, cosmetics, I didn't buy any of it because it was just like so expensive. The next one, if you haven't seen the video of my tours around the 3 Sikh Gurdwaras in my hometown, I did actually mention this. I only drove like once in Australia. That was when I was in my hometown. I was comfortable with the roads, and otherwise I was really nervous to drive where there's rules. Here I drive, but you know, you go around people, you beep, you can turn wherever you want. It's very, very flexible. Not in Chandigarh city itself because they're a bit more strict, but like I'm on the Punjab side and it's really relaxed. So I had the habit, I had like the urge, the Indian urge to like beat my horn when I was reversing my car, or like I was going past a cyclist and I was about to beep to say like, I'm here, watch out for me. Thank God I didn't, because it's actually illegal to beep your horn. So yeah, that was another thing where it's like just muscle memory. I go to do these things out of habit and it's not in the right country. All right, number 10, I saved this one for last because it's the most emotional one and it's the one that really, really hit me the most. The general change in family dynamics. So again, I'm repeating myself. I've been living here for 3.5 years, and going back and seeing that everyone has continued with their life, it was kind of like a bit of a rude shock. Like people really do move on, like people go on with their lives, right? It was my first time going back to Brisbane where I didn't have my own place. When I lived in Brisbane, I lived in the same flat for 6 years. And when I wasn't living there, when I was traveling or I moved back home for a bit, back to Coffs Harbour or Woolgoolga, my brother was living in that flat. So it was always around. It was in my life for like over 6 years. And so to go back to Brisbane and not have that kind of home base or that comfort area, it was really, really hard. I grew up in Woolgoolga, but my parents rented, so we moved houses a lot, but Woolgoolga always really felt like home. This was the first year where like my mum actually now lives in Brisbane, my dad's still in my hometown, and my brother's in Brisbane, but it's their homes, it's their space. It didn't feel like I had like a family home. Yes, they're my family, but it just felt like it wasn't my space. And that was really, really hard to deal with, not having that comfort or that space that I could call my own, or that I have called my own in the past. That was really upsetting. And it didn't really hit me until maybe just after Christmas, and I was crying to my mum about it. And she kind of like put it into words for me and helped me kind of explain how I was feeling, that yeah, it kind of did feel like, you know, I didn't have that home base. Everything was new. Staying with my brother and his partner in their home, in their house, that was new for me. They had moved there while I was gone. My sister, she has a child now too. She just gave birth a few days ago. So she was pregnant, like their family dynamics changed. Like everything, so many things had changed. Yes, they're my family, but I don't deal very well with change as it is, and having all of these changes all at once that I had to process, it took me a long time. And yeah, it was really hard and really, really, really upsetting. And then it made me kind of feel like I didn't have a place. I didn't belong. Even I'm getting emotional now. Yeah, it just made me feel like, yeah, I just felt out of place, and I felt like I didn't belong there anymore. Obviously that got better. And then, you know, then thinking of India here, and like Sunil obviously didn't come with me, and he was here. And, you know, he was functioning fine without me. And then I was thinking like, you know, like shit hasn't hit the fan. So obviously he's fine as well. And then it made me think like, do I even belong in India anymore? Like I felt like I was like stuck between these two countries, and I didn't belong in either of them. Which again has made it like a little bit difficult coming back, which will be another video probably. But yeah, so when I went to visit my dad in my hometown, that was actually where I felt most comfortable, because he lives in my grandma's house now, and that house has been in my life since my childhood. Like my gran built that house when I was 7. I'm almost 33. So literally my whole life, that has been a constant, that has been familiar. So to be able to go back and stay in that house, and the beaches were the same, the roads were the same, most of the buildings were the same. There were like some buildings had changed. There were still cafes there from when like I used to live there, with the same menu. So there was a lot of familiarity, and that really, really felt really comfortable for me. But out of all of these reverse culture shocks, the biggest one was this last point, just feeling like I was out of place and that I didn't belong. So that took me like probably a good like over a week to really get used to, and then I started to feel comfortable. Like I said, I probably felt my most comfortable down in my hometown. And then, yeah, you know, there was a few other things that came up, but those were the most kind of prominent ones, or the most quirky ones, or things that happened when I first got there. So there we have it. That is 10 reverse culture shocks I experienced traveling back to Australia from India. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Let me know your experiences about reverse culture shock going back to your home country, if you've been living abroad or staying abroad, or if you live in India and have gone back. I'm very interested to know that I'm not alone in what I felt. Other than that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time.